Imagine a world where some of the greatest rock bands ever were almost completely forgotten. The 60s and 70s gave us legends like Zeppelin, Floyd, and the Stones, but hidden just beneath that spotlight were dozens of bands who changed rock history only to fade into the shadows. Today, we're turning the volume back up on the lost heroes of classic rock, the ones who should have been huge. From psychedelic rebels to early metal pioneers, these are 20 forgotten rock bands who deserved more love. Let's dive in, because rock history isn't just about who made it big, it's about who should have. Let's kick off our countdown with one of the most criminally underrated hard rock bands of the early 70s, Cactus. They were often called the American Led Zeppelin, and honestly, that's not too far off. Cactus brought the same explosive blues rock energy, but with their own dirty, raw, and aggressive edge. The band featured two absolute powerhouses, drummer Carmine Appice and bassist Tim Bogert, both formerly of Vanilla Fudge. When they joined forces with guitarist Jim McCarty and singer Rusty Day, something wild happened. They created a sound that was loud, gritty, and full of swagger. Pure American muscle in musical form. Their debut album, Cactus, in 1970 was a thunderstorm of riffs and energy. Tracks like Let Me Swim and Parchment Farm showed off their blues roots, but with a garage rock intensity that could peel the paint off your speakers. So why didn't Cactus blow up like Zeppelin? Timing and label politics. They were just as heavy, but they never had that one radio-friendly hit to break through. Still, their legacy lives on. Many metal and stoner rock bands later cited them as an influence. Ever heard of Cactus before this? If not, you might be missing one of the loudest hidden gems in rock history. Coming in at number 19 is a band that took rock to another dimension, Nektar. These guys were a British-German group that fused progressive rock with deep, trippy, spacey themes. Their music wasn't just meant to be heard, it was meant to be experienced. In the early 70s, Nektar became known for their live shows that were more like psychedelic journeys, complete with synchronized light shows and visuals that pulled audiences into their soundscapes. Their masterpiece, Remember the Future from 1973, is a single continuous suite that tells a sci-fi inspired story about a blind boy who gains spiritual insight through music. Yeah, it's that kind of prog rock journey, but what made Nektar stand out wasn't just their ambition, and it was their soul. They could make complex music feel emotional and human. Even though they never hit mainstream fame like Pink Floyd or Yes, they built a loyal cult following that still exists today. Do you like music that makes you think or music that makes you feel? With Nektar, you get both. At number 18, we've got Armageddon, a short-lived band with a sound that was way ahead of its time. Formed in 1975 by Keith Relf, the former frontman of the Yardbirds, Armageddon blended hard rock, prog, and early metal into one powerful atmospheric mix. Their self-titled debut and only album is pure underground gold. It's heavy, haunting, and emotional. Relf's vocals soar over thunderous riffs and cosmic grooves. The song Buzzard alone is worth the ride. It's the kind of track that feels like it could have influenced early metal bands years later. Sadly, tragedy struck. Keith Relf passed away not long after the album's release, and the band never had a chance to reach their full potential. But what they left behind is one of rock's best-kept secrets, a one-album wonder that deserves a place in every collector's library. Ever stumble on a record so good you wonder, how did I not know about this? That's Armageddon in a nutshell. Coming in at number 17, Stray Dog, an American blues rock trio with raw power and a dirty Southern-style edge. They were discovered by none other than Greg Lake of Emerson, Lake and Palmer, and for good reason. Their self-titled 1973 debut album is pure fire. The band mixed soulful vocals, thick guitar tones, and no-nonsense blues riffing. Songs like Chevrolet and Tramp showed off that barroom grit, the kind of stuff that feels alive, sweaty, and real. But they never quite broke out beyond cult status. Maybe their sound was too bluesy for the prog crowd and too raw for the radio. Whatever the reason, Stray Dog remains one of those bands you find once, then never forget. If you love Lynyrd Skynyrd's groove but wish it hit harder, this is your band.
All in all, each man in all men and all men.
Now we move into true prog territory with number 16, Gentle Giant. This is one of those bands that either blows your mind or completely confuses you, but that's the beauty of it. Gentle Giant were fearless. They blended classical music, medieval harmonies, jazz, and rock into something entirely new. Albums like Octopus and The Power and the Glory are like puzzles. Every listen reveals something you missed before. Their musicianship was insane. Every member could play multiple instruments, and their arrangements were precise, layered, and unlike anything else happening in the 70s. But here's the thing, they weren't trying to be radio-friendly. They wanted to challenge listeners to make rock feel like an art form. That meant they never sold millions of records, but their influence runs deep among musicians who crave complexity. Do you like your rock music simple, or do you like to dig into something that challenges you? Gentle Giant might just test your limits.
What's your name?
At number 15, we revisit one of the most misunderstood success stories in rock, the Zombies. Most people know them for their hit Time of the Season, but their real masterpiece, Odessey and Oracle from 1968, went almost unnoticed when it came out. It's one of the most beautiful and sophisticated psychedelic pop albums ever recorded. Every song from Care of Cell 44 to This Will Be Our Year is filled with lush harmonies, gorgeous melodies, and bittersweet lyrics. The crazy part, the band broke up before the album was even released. It only became a cult classic years later when fans and critics realized how ahead of its time it was. If you've ever felt like your best work went unnoticed, you'll relate to the Zombies. Sliding into number 14 is a band that helped shape British blues rock, Savoy Brown. They came out of the same late 60s scene that produced Fleetwood Mac and 10 Years After, but Savoy Brown took the blues and made it heavier, grittier, and more electric. Their album album Street Corner Talking, 1971, captures that raw energy perfectly. Powerful vocals, smoking guitar solos, and tight grooves. These guys toured relentlessly, helping carry the blues torch into the hard rock era.
The same old ship, no matter where you go.
Even though they never hit massive fame, their influence on early blues rock and even southern rock can't be ignored. If you love that smoky barroom vibe and soul-stirring guitar tone, Savoy Brown deserves a listen. Ever heard of them? If not, this might be your next rabbit hole. Lucky number 13, Spirit. This California band mixed rock, jazz, and psychedelia long before fusion was even a thing. Their sound was inventive, weird, and wonderful. Led by guitarist Randy California, a former Jimi Hendrix protege, Spirit's music had both technical mastery and spiritual depth. Their albums Spirit, 1968, and 12 Dreams of Dr. Sardonicus, 1970, are experimental classics that still sound fresh today. Spirit influenced a wide range of artists, from prog rockers to jam bands, and even had a small brush with controversy. Some fans believe their song Taurus inspired the opening riff of Led Zeppelin's Stairway to Heaven. Coincidence or not, Spirit's legacy is undeniable. They were innovators who never played it safe. Number 12 brings us to a dark, powerful force in early 70s prog, Atomic Rooster. Formed by Vincent Crane and Carl Palmer, yes, before ELP, they took heavy rock and twisted it with gothic organ sounds and apocalyptic lyrics. Their 1970 album Death Walks Behind You is one of the eeriest and most original records of its time. It's got that doomy heaviness that predates Black Sabbath's darkest moments, but with more complexity and mood. Sadly, the band's lineup constantly changed, and they never reached commercial success. But their sound echoed through later metal and prog bands alike. Ever heard a band that feels both scary and soulful? That's Atomic Rooster, haunting but unforgettable. And at number 11, Captain Beyond. This was a supergroup that somehow flew under the radar, featuring former members of Deep Purple, Iron Butterfly, and Johnny Winter's band. They created one of the most cosmic rock records of the 70s. Their 1972 self-titled debut is a masterpiece, heavy, spacey, and beautifully structured. Songs flow into each other seamlessly, almost like one giant trip through time and sound.
Hey, Mr. Policeman, can you point the way?
It's the kind of album you put on from start to finish. No skips, no filler, just pure mind-bending rock energy. Despite their talent, the band faced constant label problems and never found their big break. But among die-hard rock fans, Captain Beyond is legendary. If you love discovering hidden treasures in rock, this one is for you. At number 10, we've got the Small Faces, one of the most important yet often overlooked bands in British rock history. Before The Who smashed their guitars and before David Bowie ruled the glam scene, the Small Faces were defining what it meant to be young, stylish, and rebellious in 1960s London. They were central to the mod movement, sharp suits, scooters, and soulful rock music. But these guys weren't just about fashion, they had the musical chops to back it up. Steve Marriott's voice could melt glass, Ronnie Lane's bass grooves were irresistible, and their songs blended R&B, psychedelia, and pure British charm. Their 1968 album, Ogden's Nut Gone Flake, is a psychedelic masterpiece full of whimsical storytelling, Cockney humor, and rich, colorful soundscapes. It's the kind of record that makes you feel like you're tripping through a dream version of London in full Technicolor. After they split, some members formed Faces with Rod Stewart and Ron Wood, paving the way for that swaggering, soulful sound that later influenced bands like Oasis, Blur, and even Arctic Monkeys. Here's a thought. Do you think today's rock still has that kind of street-level energy? Because the Small Faces captured it perfectly. Loud, proud, and unmistakably British. Number 9, Be-Bop Deluxe. This band didn't sound like anyone else, and that's exactly why they got lost in the shuffle. Led by guitar virtuoso Bill Nelson, Be-Bop Deluxe mixed glam rock, art rock, and futuristic themes long before anyone else thought about robots and neon cityscapes. Their 1976 album, Sunburst Finish, is an absolute gem. Sleek guitar solos, poetic lyrics, and melodies that blend space-age vibes with heart and emotion. Nelson wasn't just playing rock, he was painting with sound. His guitar work could be as flashy as Brian May's or as soulful as David Gilmour's, but always with his own unique flair. Sadly, the band came at a weird time, too glam for prog fans, too smart for mainstream rock radio. But today, Be-Bop Deluxe feels like one of those bands that time is finally catching up to. Ever heard a song that felt like it came from the future? Even though it's decades old, that's Be-Bop Deluxe in a nutshell. Coming in at number 8, Trapeze. Now here's a band that should have been massive. Featuring a young Glenn Hughes who later joined Deep Purple, Trapeze fused hard rock, funk, and soul in a way nobody else was doing in the early 70s. Their 1970 album, Medusa, is wild. Smooth bass grooves, fiery guitar work, and Hughes' voice soaring like a gospel singer dropped into a rock concert. Their sound was years ahead of its time, bridging the gap between blues rock and what would eventually become funk metal. But like many greats, timing worked against them. They didn't quite fit neatly into one category. Too soulful for hard rock, too heavy for pop radio. Still, if you want to hear where the future of rock was quietly being born, Trapeze is where to start. Do you like when rock bands blend genres, or do you prefer pure, straightforward rock? Because Trapeze proved that sometimes mixing it up creates magic. At number 7, we drift into the psychedelic side of the 60s. Quicksilver Messenger Service. These guys were a cornerstone of the San Francisco rock scene, standing shoulder to shoulder with Jefferson Airplane, the Grateful Dead, and Big Brother and the Holding Company. But Quicksilver had their own flavor, a deeper, more musical take on psychedelia. Their 1969 album, Happy Trails, is basically one long, beautiful jam session. It's got blues, folk, acid rock, and that sense of pure freedom that only existed in that late 60s moment. Songs flowed like conversations, and their guitar interplay, especially from John Cipollina, was electric poetry. They were the kind of band that didn't just play to their audience, they played with them. It was communal, immersive, and spiritual. Have you ever heard a live performance so loose and spontaneous it feels alive? That's Quicksilver Messenger Service, not just music, but an experience. At number 6, we've got a band that flirted with stardom but never fully got the glory they deserved, Mott the Hoople. Before their big hit, All the Young Dudes, penned by David Bowie, Mott was already hammering out raw, gritty rock anthems that defined early glam and hard rock. Frontman Ian Hunter had the voice of a working-class poet, raspy, emotional, and honest. Their early albums, especially Brain Capers and Mott, are full of attitude and streetwise storytelling. They sounded like the Rolling Stones' rowdier cousins with more grit and less gloss. When Bowie stepped in and gave them All the Young Dudes, it saved the band from breaking up and cemented their legacy. But even before that, Mott had something real, a sound that captured the struggle, the hope, and the chaos of being a rock band trying to survive. Ever wonder what separates the bands that make it big from the ones that fade away? Sometimes it's not talent, it's timing, luck, and a little bit of fate. Number 5, Blue Cheer, the band that many believe gave birth to heavy metal itself. Their 1968 album, Vinspus Eruptum, is often credited as the first true heavy metal record. Loud, fuzzy, and unrelenting, it's like the sound of an amplifier catching fire and loving it. Their cover of Summertime Blues turned a simple rockabilly tune into a wall of distortion that influenced everyone from Black Sabbath to Motorhead. Blue Cheer were pure chaos. Their shows were so loud that people compared them to jet engines. They didn't care about finesse, they cared about feeling, about energy, about making the walls shake. If you've ever heard someone say they don't make them like they used to, they're probably talking about Blue Cheer. Can you imagine hearing that level of volume for the first time in 1968? It must have felt like the future and the apocalypse all at once. At number 4, we've got The Move, one of the most inventive bands to come out of Britain in the late 60s, led by the brilliant Roy Wood and later joined by Jeff Lynne. The Move were a wild mix of catchy pop hooks, heavy guitars, and experimental sounds. To reassure myself, my head must need some exercise. They could go from beautiful harmonies to full-on chaos in the same song, and that was their magic, unpredictability. Their live shows were legendary for being anarchic and energetic with smashed instruments and all. The fire brigade, see the building start to really burn. Hit the fire brigade, Their 1968 hit Fire Brigade and the album Shazam show how they combined pop melody with hard rock edge. Later, when Lynn joined, the move evolved into Electric Light Orchestra ELO, one of the most successful art rock acts ever. So here's the question, but if the move hadn't pushed the limits, would ELO even exist? Probably not. Now we're flying into heavy territory with number 3, Budgie. This Welsh trio were absolute pioneers. They mixed heavy metal's power with a quirky sense of humor and melody. Before Metallica and Iron Maiden covered their songs, Budgie was already laying the groundwork for modern metal. Their 1973 album, Never Turn Your Back on a Friend, is a masterclass in riff-driven rock. Songs like Bread Fan and Parents show how they could be aggressive and thoughtful at the same time. Singer-bassist Burke Shelley had a high expressive voice that gave their heavy sound a strange beauty. They were heavy, yes, but never one-dimensional. Ever notice how some of the greatest bands never got the fame they deserved? Budgie is the perfect example, ahead of their time and still influencing bands decades later. Number 2, Wishbone Ash, one of the unsung heroes of melodic rock. If you've ever loved twin guitar harmonies, that rich, interlocking sound heard in Thin Lizzy or Iron Maiden, you can thank Wishbone Ash. Their 1972 album, Argus, is a masterpiece. It's got everything like stunning guitar work, emotional lyrics, and songs that feel both powerful and peaceful. Tracks like The King Will Come and Throw Down the Sword are timeless. Wishbone Ash managed to make music that was both epic and accessible. They weren't flashy, they were elegant, soulful, and full of heart. Do you prefer your rock loud and fast, or melodic and thoughtful? Wishbone Ash found the perfect middle ground. And finally, at number 1, The Pretty Things. These guys were dangerous, wild, rebellious, and for a moment they were giving the Rolling Stones a serious run for their money. Fronted by Phil May and led by guitarist Dick Taylor, who actually played with the Stones before forming The Pretty Things, this band took R&B, cranked it up, and gave it a filthy psychedelic twist. Their 1968 album SF Sorrow was one of the first true rock operas released before The Who's Tommy. It told a dark, emotional story through music years before concept albums became trendy, but despite their innovation, they never got the recognition they deserved. Maybe they were too wild for radio or too ahead of their time. Still, their influence runs deep. You can hear echoes of them in punk, garage rock, and even modern indie. So here's a question to leave you with. Why do some of the most innovative artists get forgotten while others become household names? Because when it comes to The Pretty Things, they weren't just part of rock history, they helped write it. The journey doesn't end here, rock warrior. Watch this next.